Oh, I don't think I started the screen share on that last one, but it's on now. All right, so we're talking, whoops. Oh, thank you. Let's talk joint application development first. So whose computer had the joint application development? Okay. So tell me what you got.
Well, this development, it's basically fact finding. It's done in a group setting.
Okay, so based on fact finding, it's group setting. Okay.
Yes.
It's like a powwow kind of where everybody comes together, users and the managers and the IT department all together at once.
All together at once.
Yeah, so it
How-
would be expensive and cumbersome because it could be a lot of people in it at once. And
So-
get everybody together.
So expensive in what aspect?
Well, like you mentioned before, the more people you add into a project,
Right.
the more conflicts there might be.
Yep.
This, if you have more people involved than the actual requirements, it causes more issues.
It definitely does, right? Because we're going to have more people with more opinions, with more ideas. That can also be a benefit, right? But there's definitely a cost in that the more folks we have involved in the process, the expense comes in that we're paying a lot of people when we don't necessarily need all these folks, right? I mean, do we need every single end user from a department that we're building software for in all of these meetings? What kind of end user do we really want? Are there different kinds of end users?
Knowledgeable one.
A knowledgeable one. Yeah, we definitely want someone who's knowledgeable, right? So maybe it's that power user. Do we tend to know who the power users are? Yeah, we do, for sure. So yeah, user oriented. We're going to find that, most of these are going to be user oriented, can result in accurate system requirements. With all the people we have involved, it's certainly better, right? If not, then we need to look back at who's leading this thing. Agreed? And then we're back to those, back to that skill set, of analytical and interpersonal skills. Is it important for the systems analyst to keep things moving? Did we see that Wednesday when we were doing that where, we had a little lull in what was going on? Yeah. Is it, here's the thing. It's a tiring process, to sit there and continue to generate ideas. Have any of you at all been just what I call mentally tired? Where you've just thought so much on something, you're just exhausted, right? Okay, what was the other one? Who had rapid replication development? Okay, where is that one? Is that the Word doc?
Yeah.
Please wait. All right. So tell us about RAD, besides the fact that it's totally rad, dude.
So RAD focuses on short, rapid development life cycles, faster generally than JAD.
Okay.
It's for focus projects where there aren't a variety of decisions to be made. There's not a whole lot of focus on planning. The focus is more on development. So
Okay, so
right to work.
So more on development, which means we better have a very good idea of what the system needs to do, so that we can just skip not skip all of the analysis, but, really not put the focus on analysis, but in this case, put the focus on development. Okay.
Which kind of leads to the next couple points, where it's more suitable for smaller teams. Success of the project largely depends on strong teamwork and IT skills. And used for projects with existing data and experience too. So generally, these guys have a good idea of what's going on and know what they need to develop on right away.
So it sounds to me like what you're saying is that rapid application development, really finds its suit in maybe updating existing software. Is that what you all kind of get? Because we know what the software already needs to do. We're just going to improve it. Okay.
Relies heavily on prototypes and user involvement. Focuses uses spiral modeling for software development life cycles. And one of the cons was that it although it provides a little more flexibility, there's less control of the project overall because of the lack of planning.
Right, because of the inherent design of rapid application development, we don't tend to have a bunch of control, right? Does a lot of our control come from that requirements document? Does that limit our ability? Hey, here's what's needed. It's there, it's on paper. Don't go do this because that's not what we need, right? Okay, I'm good with that. And let's see, who's got the last one?
You.
Okay, Garth.
I was reading Agile Methods. Kind of overall, it's simple. It's supposed to focus more on, just like the other two, focus more on development than the features or documentation and everything.
Right.
And also relies heavily on the users and what they want, what their requirements are for the product. And so it breaks everything down into smaller tasks so you can complete the steps sooner and get prototypes out from those steps sooner and test those steps.
Okay.
To see if it's meeting the user's needs as we're going along. Some of the pros of it are that it's flexible. It can change easily if you want to make any changes to it. And on the other side of that, also a con of that is it leads to scope creep. If you're testing after each step, then people are going to want to add things, or if they start testing it out. And then has a lack of structure because they don't focus too much on the documentation of it, and it's focused more on the development of it and to keep the project moving forward to try and get it done out as quickly as possible.
So have you noticed with these three methods, although popular methods, we miss that whole documentation piece, right? And there's a lot of control that comes from that documentation. I mean, a great example would be if we're designing a product that needs a back-end database and I haven't delivered to the database programmer a data dictionary, I leave a lot of things up in the air for that person or that team of programmers to decide what my product needs or what my software needs, right? So that inherently can be a good thing because in a way you're leaving it up to the experts, right? But it also can be a very bad thing because that lack of structure, can be key. And what I mean by that is when you're designing reports, why do we put data into a database? What's the reason we put data in a database? So we can use it. So we can garner information from it, right? Ask questions of the data, getting results that then gives us some sort of concrete evidence on how to move forward. If our database says, hey, we're down 8% this quarter, well, now we might want to go ask more questions of the data. Where's that coming from? Right? I mean, if an accountant just says, hey, we're down 8%, we got to let, glean staff by 2 people. Where do you take them from? Don't you need to figure out who's not doing the work or what department has been affected? Right? if we have multiple product lines, multiple manufacturing lines, do we want to let people go from the line that's profitable or the line that's not profitable? These are all questions we ask of the data, right? In the case of your business, questions that you may ask of the data may lead you to figure out where the heck our customer base really is. Would you agree? In having your business up and running, the data is most likely producing some information and giving answers that you didn't expect. Is that happening?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It's coming from where we probably expected it.
Okay. All
but
right.
We're getting data that we didn't realize from that source.
There you go. And what's to say that some of that data can't somehow produce an alternative revenue source, right? So are these all the methods? No. Let's be clear on these methods, though. You can inherently see that certain methods are going to fit certain project styles, certain project sizes, right? Is this a new project? We're building it from scratch, or is this a project to improve an existing system? In which case, hopefully everybody knows what's going on and rapid application development works really well. And we don't tend to find a ton of scope creep unless we allow it to happen. That's when we find scope creep. Now, if somebody has a bottomless checkbook, so let it creep, So user involvement, in JAD, vital stake in an information system. They should, participate fully. Yes. Successful systems, user-oriented. Users need to be involved. Gee, didn't they just say this in the first bullet point? Aren't these saying the same things? Must be important. Popular strategy for, user involvement. Yeah, okay. So just some ideas of some roles. You have a project leader, you have top management, managers, users, bring in the computer nerds, and then someone who records this. Always good, if you can, to have someone who's doing the documentation. Because inherently the idea, notice the first word, rapid. If we don't have someone who's scribing, keeping notes, we can quickly forget where we were or what we were talking about, right? Especially in our idea generation.
What happens when users provide input that the technical people can't solve? Who wins that discussion?
Well, first of all, if there's no technology to solve it with, there we are. Who wins that discussion is neither the IT department or the end users. Management wins that discussion because it's going to come down to a time cost benefit. Okay. So a user comes up with an idea, says, you know what? We absolutely have to have this thing. All right. Well, that's going to cost the project another 6 months and $500,000. Who makes that decision? Not the IT department and not the end user. The end user already said, I want it, right? So they're biased. So we take that up to management and say, is this really something that's going to benefit the company? And are we willing to increase the time of the project? We have to be very careful with time. Time is one of those factors that we are limited to. You want more money for your business? You can get it. You could get it through a loan, right? You could get it through some venture capital, but you can get money. And with money, you can hire more resources, right? Or buy more resources if you need. But time, there's only 24 hours in a day, So advantages, more expensive and can be cumbersome if the, group is too large relative to the size of the project. Everybody's going to want to be involved. Everybody's going to have an opinion. I would say as we work on our pseudo business, one of the inherent challenges to the work we're doing is that we already have too big of a team for what we're doing, right? But what are we going to do? Fire half the class? Don't show up on Wednesdays. Don't come and learn. Okay. Now some people are probably like, okay, I'll do that. I got homework to do. JAD can result in a more accurate statement of system requirements, better understanding of common goals, and a stronger commitment to the success of the new system. Yes. So, accurate statement of system requirements. Well, we have more people involved, right? And so what do we know about having more people involved? We get more ideas, okay, but it costs us time. Better understanding of the common goals? Yeah. Everyone's on the same bus. Now we just need to decide who's driving the bus. You get 20 people on a project, are there going to be, 3, 4 inherent leaders, each biting to be the one driving the bus? Yes. Stronger commitment to success? Yes. Why? Because when you're engaged in something, we take what of it? We take ownership, right? Here's my favorite part of that, politics. Gosh, love politics. I love hearing those conversations, people complaining about, oh, well, this law did this or this did that. Or my first question is, did you vote? Well, no, because my vote doesn't count. Well, then neither does your opinion. Right? I mean, if you're not voting, have you really engaged in the process? So RAD phases, requirements planning, we get into user design, construction, we just start iterating, and finally, at some point, we do a cutover if we're cutting over from an existing system. If we're not, then that's just implementation of the system. When do we convert data? When do we do our testing? When do we change over? The absolute worst thing you can do in IT is to allow users to have access to the old system. Because guess what? That's where they're most comfortable. Now, if there's historical stuff, if we're not able to pull all of our data from the old system over, then we're going to need to go back there and query. And inherently, we just created a problem because we have to query and ask a question of the old data and query and ask a question of the new data, right? Until there's enough new data for us to say, yes, we have enough historical information. We don't have to go past, back more than 5 years. But that means for 5 years, we're asking the same question of 2 systems, and somebody then has to take that information and what? Combine it. How efficient is that? How many systems should a company have? Ultimately, 1. Cut development time, and expense by involving the users in every phase of the development. A successful RAD team, must have IT resources. Do you think? I mean, why did that local coupon company fail? Because they had no one in IT. They're trying to design an IT system without anybody from IT on the team. All right, we're ready to play that NFL football game. We're all ready. Oh, we don't have a quarterback. Well, let's go out and see what we can do without one. We might have some great defense, but does defense win a game? No, the whole team wins the game, right? Development team, a system that requires highly interactive and complex user interface. Systems can be developed more quickly with significant cost savings. Yeah. Or can be very costly in a very short amount of time. So RAD stresses the mechanics of the system itself and does not emphasize the company's strategic business needs. Woo! Why are we designing this system in the first place? To meet business needs. To either increase what? Revenue, or decrease expenses, cost. Do we really want to design a system? Let me give you a great example of that. Let's go to personal trainer. Do we really design a system for the 12 existing locations? Or do we design a system for the new business model that somehow also meets the needs of the existing locations? Which do we do? Yeah, because if not, we've just designed a system that is inherently out of date the moment we build that supercenter. Huh? So an iPhone. Yeah. Might allow less time for development, quality, consistency, design standards. Now, let's be pretty clear on that, though. If we have a team that we've worked with before, we all know how to work together. We all know how to meet the needs. We all know what the corporate goals are. You know, when these projects start, even if the project doesn't have real direct impact, it's always good. I mean, what company would you rather work for? The one that you go in and work for 3 years and you do the job? Or the one where they come to you every quarter and say, you know, these are our goals. These are what we're doing. This is where production is at, or this is where our service level commitment is at. You know, companies that do that get what from their employees? When they communicate what the business is doing, how it's doing, what do they get? Buy-in. Yeah, you become inherently responsible for what's going on in the company, right? Your job means something. The challenge with that is, do I tell you we're, you know, approaching rough times? And maybe I do. Maybe then I don't have to make the decision on who gets let go. Someone else finds a good job. The challenge with that is my best people tend to leave, right? Because they're looking for that, you know, reliability from me. So Agile methods attempt to develop a system incrementally. So we're breaking it up in parts. You know, a tool set includes support for many modeling tools. Yes, developers prefer not to use case tools at all. Rely instead on whiteboard displays, arrangements, and movable sticky notes. So that's what we're doing, right? We're using a combination of Agile and game storming. Okay, game storming came from the whole Agile method. The idea is, isn't this funny? We're designing technology using very low tech. You know, is a sticky note technology? I'm so dang old, I remember when sticky notes first came out. And now we have sticky notes that are, you know, on the computer. You know, and I don't mean, you know what I'm talking about.
When they first came out, were they all one color?
They were all yellow. Yeah. And then somebody said, hey, other colors might be good. Yeah. So Agile methods, they use a lot of rugby terms. So a scrum, everybody know what a scrum is, right? We just, you know, everybody just shoulder to shoulder and then we throw it in, you know, and everybody just goes for the ball. You know, well, think about that from a development standpoint. You know, first of all, it's pretty ugly. All the computer nerds. Anyway, I don't even want to go there. That mental picture. Woo! So pigs include the product owner, the facilitator, the development team, you know, while the chickens are the users, other stakeholders, managers, you know, just different levels of who's involved, you know, what their commitment level is, you know, and what their impact is. So Scrum sessions, specific guidelines that emphasize time blocks, interaction, team-based activities that result in deliverable software. So when we get back to our project, one thing that we'll look to do is start putting time limits on. How many people work better under stress? Anybody besides me? Yeah. You know, this is our great excuse for procrastination. You know, I'll wait till it's due in 3 hours and hope I've given myself enough time to do a good job, right? I mean, for me, that's how it is. When I was doing my master's, when I first started out, on Monday, you know, I would start right on actually Tuesday, because the essays were all due Monday at 11:59 p.m. Tuesday, I would start writing the new essay. You know, so I would do the research, I'd read the case studies, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, read the case studies, start making my notes on, you know, what I needed to put in my essay, you know, what I needed to cover based on the questions given, start writing it, and I could spend 20 hours writing a 10-page essay. And then because I overthought it, it became way too big. There was too much garbage, too much junk, right? Too much fodder. And I'd get a B or a B minus. Then what I figured out is if I did all the prep work and then 5 hours before it was due, limited myself on time, I would come in under the page limit, better quality, make my points, and get out and earn A's. You know, you give me enough time, I will overthink everything. Yeah, I don't know about you all.
I think it's everybody.
Huh?
I think it's just about everybody.
Can be.
Are the Scrum sessions like meetings where ideas are being tossed around, or are they development sessions?
Yeah, so at the start, you know, it can be everything from analysis to idea generation, you know, but what we tend to do is limit its time. You know, at my consulting business, every single meeting was a half an hour, period. At a half an hour, we were done. Go back to work. You know, why? Because I've sat in meetings, you know, that were an hour long, that you're sitting there an hour and a half later and you're like, we have accomplished nothing. No decisions have been made. No ideas have been generated, you know, etc. And when you're on a time schedule, do you tend to get more done? And this is what we need to get done in this time. Let's go.
Be more focused.
Way more focused. Yeah. So advantages and disadvantages. So very flexible, efficient in dealing with change. You know, deliverables constantly validate the project and reduce risk. So, you know, here's that thing where, you know, we're breaking it up. We have to be at this point at this time. Team members need a high level of technical and interpersonal skills. Well, yes. Why a high level of interpersonal skills? We're getting everybody involved. May be subject to significant change in scope. Highly probable that we're going to just start exploding ideas. So things that are used, case tools, functional decomposition diagrams. We'll get into these, data flow diagrams, and the unified modeling language. So we'll watch a couple videos on those. So delving more into the requirements, outputs. You know, what is the output going to be? The website must report online, volume statistics every 4 hours, and hourly during peak periods. Well, that's going to take some system resources, isn't it? Now, are we going to batch process or do it live? Inventory system must produce a daily report showing the part number, description, quantity on hand, quantity allocated, quantity available, and the unit cost. You know, shortage reports. You know, as soon as we know we're going to manufacture a product, we should be going and allocating whatever parts that are needed from inventory, right? Because we know certain parts have a longer lead time. If we have a machine shop that's very busy that's given us a lead time of 60 days, we don't want to be in that process waiting for that part on day 30. Then we got 30 days for something to sit there till we can put a part on it. Imagine not being able to sell an airplane because we don't have a couple switches or a couple gauges. How highly inefficient would that be? And to think, folks, we used to do all of this without computers. Somehow we used to manufacture stuff without computers. So inputs, manufacturer employees must swipe ID cards into online data collection terminals. They record labor costs, calculate production efficiency. In those U-shaped manufacturing cells that I told you about, there were buttons. They'd, hit a button, start a process, hit a button to finish the process. Guess what they found out? When employees started trying to work too fast, what happened to the quality of the product? It went down. When they worked too slow, what happened to the cost of the product? Yep. So we need to find that, happy medium. Department head must, enter overtime hours on a separate screen. So the processes, what's going to happen with the data? So now that we have all this data in some system, what are processes surrounding the data? Well, in this case, examples, student records must calculate the GPA at the end of each semester. As the final step in year-end processing, the payroll system must update employees' salaries, bonuses, benefits, produce tax data, produce those 1099 forms. Performance. Performance is a real challenge because do you build a system for its peak performance, or do you build a system for how it performs all day long? Let me give you an example of this. I don't know how long some of you have been up here on campus, but was anybody here during the peak of the recession? Where if you didn't get online at 7 a.m. to register for the classes you need on that very first day, by 9 o'clock, those classes were what? They were full. You were on a wait list. I remember teaching classes where literally I had more people on the wait list than were registered in the class. So performance, how do you think that system banner performed at 7 a.m. that morning? It probably didn't. It was slow. Are you speaking firsthand? Okay. It was slow. It was terribly slow. And the worst thing you did is what all end users like to do. It's not working. Click it again, right? Now you've just queued up 10 processes. Now it's really not going to work, right? Don't get click happy. You'd get in, you'd click, and you'd wait for your process to run. You'd just be patient. Well, would it be cost effective for the college to increase, the amount of performance for that system to meet a couple days? Who knows? Today, though, can we do that? Today, if we build a system correctly and it's in a data center, we can just go to Amazon if it's sitting in Amazon and say, hey, for the next 3 days, we're putting out a new product and this happened last time. We're going to need, 10, 20 more servers serving our application for just these few days. That's highly efficient, isn't it? We just virtualize the dang thing, throw it on a server. And when we're done with it, pull it off the cluster. Response time must not exceed 4 seconds. Here's the challenge with performance. How long are you willing to wait for a website to come up? There are some factors like that. How bad do you need it, right? Can you get it someplace else? Anybody in this room watched a web page render slowly and clicked off of it? Every day. Wonder if those people realize that. Probably not, right? That they're losing business.
They should know that.
They should, but don't be surprised at how many don't. So control system must, provide logon security at the operating system level and at the application level. So do a login if that's what we need. Employees' records must be changed by just, only a member of the human resources department. This is where we get into, security. And then, of course, the idea of scalability. I think my favorite example of scalability is there was a commercial on, I can't remember for what product or service, but basically you could tell it's like a 4-person company. They're sitting in their, little new company office, and they throw up their website. It's live for their product, and they're sitting there watching the order count. Have y'all seen this? They're watching the order count, and boom, the first order comes in, and they're like, yes! And then here comes the second, third, fourth order, fifth order, sixth order, and their excitement just grows, right? And then pretty soon it goes from 50 to 400,000 in a minute. And what happens? They go, how quickly can you scale out a project? We've seen a lot of IT things, that have failed from scalability. Planning, planning a network. How many people are going to build a corporate network based on a Class C IP address schema to where all I have is 254 nodes on my network? Well, it may work if I know the company hasn't grown in years, right? And it may be suitable. But if I'm building it from the start, why not build it to where it can scale? Then I don't have to worry about rebuilding it. Does that make sense? Business space in Bend is a great example. So future growth, cost, benefits. Our company wants to know what it's going to cost. Not what it's going to cost to build it, but what it's going to cost over its life cycle. So that's total cost of ownership. Especially important if the development team is evaluating several alternatives. What is the system really going to cost us? Every year we tend to pay support fees for software that we use in our organization. What does that get us? Technical support, right? System goes down, they help us bring it back up. We need an improvement, they help us. System's running slow, they figure it out. We need some custom fields, they program it. Maybe. How efficient are we without that stuff? System goes down. Who knows how to fix it? I don't know. We normally just call technical support. Oh, well, we don't have any more of that. Yeah, SOL. That's a good 3-letter acronym. So one problem is that cost estimates tend to underestimate indirect costs. Indirect costs. What's the cost to our system if the word gets out before we even implement it? Oh man, it sucks. It's cumbersome. It's going to be hard to work with. Are there indirect costs?
Yeah, you already have bad marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, a bad reputation right off the bat, right? Before we even put it out. Is that going to affect sales? It could, right? I think the greatest example is in getting Lumberman's insurance. Here they're paying for an agency management system that sucks so bad, I'm asking them to start a new project to go find a better system while they continue to pay for the old system. Now, is that going to be a tough sell? I just went and looked at the cost. Well, the system was down last month for 15 hours. Or the last update kept these people from doing their job, which means they were sitting there doing nothing for 4 days till we got an update that fixed the update. Then just take their burden rate, multiply all that out and go, here's what you're losing in tangible cost. Now let's talk about user frustration. Who puts a number on that? I don't know. Management? You know, how long are you going to stay at a job when you can't succeed at a job because you don't have the tools you need to succeed? So fact finding, first you must identify the information you need. Develop a fact finding plan. You know, surveys. Let's talk personal trainer. 300 to 400 members at each location. Okay, so we have a population. Is the demographic of that population going to be unique at any of the locations? Could it potentially be unique? I see some people saying, yeah. Why? Is the demographic of the downtown athletic club different than the demographic at, I don't know, 1440 or whatever it's called? Yeah. You know, what'd you say?
It's vastly different.
It's vastly different, right? Is it going to be different if we open an athletic club on the east side where there's a bunch of retirement centers? Yeah. So how do we query? How do we survey that so we make sure we don't leave a demographic out? First of all, do I need to survey each and every person? No. Is that going to be costly? Yeah, I don't understand how the whole census thing works, because the whole idea behind the census is what? We should be able to get results from everybody. Now we know that that's not the case. What's a good sampling rate of a population? A quarter would be so awesome. 10%? I think if you can get 10%, you're doing really well, as long as it's a random sampling. And what I mean by that is in one of our fitness centers, we don't want to just ask people to fill out surveys at 8 a.m., right? We want to ask people throughout the day to fill out surveys. Because after those early birds go to work, in come the retired people. Are they going to have different needs for our system? Yeah. You know,
It's a personal trainer that aren't you setting your demographic by your location and your cost?
are you setting your demographic? Well, to a certain degree, yes. I mean, you know, if I hate to pick on pizza businesses in Bend, but there's a few of them there. Where do I decide to build my next pizza business? My next location? Well, could be. Or maybe it could be where my existing customers come from. And what I mean by that is if I query my existing customers and find out, man, I have great pizza, and we would eat your pizza more if there was a more convenient location to where we live. But there's not, so we only come over here once every other week versus every pizza night we would be here. Well, where do you live? Well, I live on the southwest side of Bend. Okay. You know, put a pin on a map for that matter, right? And you see the demographic of where people are. Where do I build a restaurant? Where do I build my next location? I make it convenient, right? Does that make sense? So I may choose where to put my location. There's probably some reason we don't know why personal trainers decide to open the new super center where. Yeah. Is that a big population? We're doing a super center, a huge gym. We need a big population. We need a lot of members. Is Podunk, Indiana going to be a place for, I don't know. I hate to pick on Podunk. I've never been there. It just seems Podunk to me. We need to ask the 5 questions or the 6 questions. Who, what, where, when, how, and why. Don't skip one. Difference between asking what is being done and what could or should be done. A lot of the times with technology, folks, here's what I found out in my consulting business. Most businesses didn't know what could be done because they're not technologically savvy. Oh, well, we can build a database that would do that. Oh, you could? Yeah. What do you mean I don't have to print my book of lists, but that people could go ahead and query it and download just what they need into an Excel spreadsheet? Well, yeah. So the Zachman framework, for enterprise architecture, helps managers and users understand the model and assures that overall business goals translate into successful IT projects. Again, just a few years ago, if you could spell computer, just do whatever you want. Design, develop whatever you think our business needs. Not anymore, right? We got into recession, and what happened to spending? Psst, out the door. That's when Microsoft came up with the line, do more with less. That was their big marketing thing. Do more with less. Microsoft. So it was time for a change. Step 1, so interview. Determine the people you're going to interview. Do we need to interview everyone? Most likely not. We don't have the time. We don't have the funds. We just need a good sampling of our demographic. And we need to know what the demographic is. Now, let's be very clear when we're talking about interviewing. When you all come up with interview questions, let me be very clear. We are not doing customer satisfaction surveys. We are not determining if someone will use their childcare that's provided. Personal trainers already said we're putting in childcare, right? So what are we surveying for? What are we here to do? Build a what? No, we're not building a super center. The super center is already being built. We are building a system to support the super center. So our questions need to be focused on the system. What is it you need from the system? Let's go back here. Who will use the system? What will they want from the system? Where will they use the system? When will they use the system? How will they use the system? Do we want to have a personal trainer? And I don't mean the company. I mean a personal trainer, a person, having to run back and forth to a computer when working with a client? No, we want to be able to say, oh, okay, yeah, we did bench press today, and you best bench 85 pounds today. Woo, that's 5 pounds more than you did 2 weeks ago. We're seeing an improvement. Let's look at here we go. Let's look at your overall fitness level. There it is. And why will they use the system? So establish objectives for the interview. Determine the general areas to be discussed. List the facts you want to gather. Well, there's the facts right there. Start with the 6 questions. Develop the interview questions. Creating a standard list of interview questions. Avoid leading questions. If I give you this, would you use it? Now, that's a real challenge as well. So are open-ended questions, because in a certain degree, you want to generate ideas for the system from these surveys. But also, what happens if we give someone a half an hour to tell us something that should only take 5 minutes. What are they going to do? They're going to take the half hour, inevitably. You know, close-ended questions, range of response questions. You know, again, you know, one of my favorite questions. Well, if we only offered 10-week summer term, would you take classes? Does that give me at all the ability to say I would prefer the 8-week and I would be more apt to take 8-week? No, it's just saying that's a leading question, isn't it? We're going to raise your taxes by 5% this year. Will you pay them? You know, prepare for the interview. Careful preparation, essential. You know, and then there's the question, how are we doing the interview? Am I just handing you a piece of paper? Am I handing you a SurveyMonkey link, hoping you'll fill it out? Am I standing in front of you, helping you fill it out? Am I doing an interview one-on-one? That's costly. You know, and a lot of times we need to seed it with something. Well, if you'll fill this out, you have the possibility of winning an iPad. You know, is it worthwhile to go out and spend $1,000 and get an iPad? You know, and have it sitting right there? And, you know, are people more apt to help me get my survey? Yeah. Could they be biased? Could be. Yeah. Have you ever completed a survey just to get something? Yeah. Limit the interview to no more than 1 hour. Well, that depends on how many questions you have. Set a list of topics. Ask interviewee to have samples available if you're looking at work. Of course, conduct the interview. Make sure you're listening. You know, how engaged am I to teach a class if everybody's like, and I hear a bunch of clicking while I'm teaching? You know, oh, you must know this. Okay, right? Isn't it the same thing? How engaged are you to have a interpersonal conversation with someone who's like, yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. Okay, Cody, yeah. Yeah, just do it. Right? You feel important? Nope. Allow the person enough time to, you know, think about the question after the interview. You should summarize the session and seek a confirmation. A lot of times in doing these, even in completing surveys, if we're doing it in front of the person, can we get an idea of how engaged they were? How committed they were to giving us our answers? Should we scale that? Yeah. And maybe we incorporate that in. You know, we decide on a value level. Oh, this person was really engaged. They were there. They had the information I needed. They provided value, versus the person that you could tell was just in there feeding to you whatever they thought their manager wanted. So note-taking should be kept to a minimum. If we're not taking notes, now I'm not sure I necessarily agree with this. Let me tell you why. Cody, if you and I are having a business meeting and you're sharing ideas with me, okay, now I have to be careful how I take notes, especially with technology today. If I've got a pad and paper and I'm taking notes on what you're saying, does that make you feel more valued? Potentially. You know, but there's the other side too, which is I'm now communicating with the pad and pen, not with you, right? Here's what I do, especially being a techno nerd. I'm constantly taking notes on my phone in meetings. I start out by telling people, folks, just want you to know, I take notes on my phone. Because if not, what do I think they're doing on their phone? Facebook, texting, checking stuff out. They're not engaged, right? So how do I get rid of that assumption? I tell people what I'm doing, and I might even show them, hey, I'm taking notes. See? You know. After you interview, send a memo to the interviewee expressing your appreciation. Why? Because you may need to talk to them again. Evaluate the interview. That's what I was talking about. Are we going to have unsuccessful interviews? You bet. No matter how well we plan, someone is going to be having a bad day. If that's someone whose information we need, hey, maybe we can do this on another day when you're not as busy. Here's the cool thing with all of this. If we do it right and we engage the person, we'll get what we want. However, so document review, observation. Maybe the next step is to watch you do whatever the current process is. Now, today, a lot of those processes are, I watch how you interact with the current software, right? I listen and I watch. So, but seeing the system in action, if we've got an existing system, additional perspective, better understanding. It is amazing. At JELD-WEN, when I was in management at JELD-WEN, we would do this. We would clock processes. How long does it take, to finger joint this particular product together? And that compared to the defect rate. And what if we slowed down the line a little bit? Any new machinery we built at JELD-WEN, we made sure we could control the speed. And then we just found the optimum speed to run it, right? But here's what I also found out. If I walk up to you, I'll pick on Chad and say, okay, Chad, I'm going to watch you work this system. Ready? Go! What does Chad do inherently?
Play by the rules.
Play by the rules. What else?
Work faster.
Work faster. So am I really getting the real numbers? No. I may need to be over looking like I'm doing something else and spying on Chad to get the real numbers.
What I've done is when we were manufacturing, I just left a video recorder on, and I'd walk away, and people actually tend to forget that they're being watched.
They do. They do. Now there's another side of that, which is then they find out they were watched and, oh, big brother, and What's the Hawthorne effect? Anybody know what the Hawthorne effect was?
Not the lights on, or having the lights on or off. Is that the one
That was-
it
that was
works better. And
part of it.
They started working better just because they were part of the study.
Yeah, so basically what happened is they wanted to figure out what stimuli caused people to work faster, slower, what affected productivity. So they put out this big study. We were going to change the lighting. We were going to change the temperature. We were going to change how they got parts. All of these changes. And what was funny is no matter what change they made, what happened to productivity? It went up. We made the manufacturing area cold and miserable, and productivity went up. We made it hot and muggy, and productivity went up. What was the thing they finally figured out was the common element? They were being observed. They were being paid attention to. No matter how bad they made it, someone was paying attention to how they were doing their job. That made them feel important, and they worked better. A gentleman by the name of Dick Wendt, who started JELD-WEN, started that multinational company in Klamath Falls, Oregon, with one mill, knew that. No matter how big the company got, every single day, as far as I know, he took time to get out from his desk and walk around the plants in Klamath. Learn who the people were that were working for him, stop and ask questions. And then, of course, he gave those answers to managers. who could do things to make things better. And the most valuable thing that I learned from that man, I was really young when I worked there. I had started with Geldwin. I was overworking on something. I saw him walk through the plant, and instantly I went, I started working faster, right? Oh my gosh, that's the owner of this company. Oh yeah, he walks around all the time. They were like, no big deal. I'm like, wow. He must have business meetings. He was in a suit. He pulls off his jacket. He goes over to a cut bin, okay, which is pieces of wood that can't be used for anything. It's getting full. Picks it up, goes over to the dumpster, dumps it, comes back, and puts it down. Now, normally that would be the person who's on the cut saw. When that thing fills up, they stop cutting wood, and they go and do that. What do you think happened to the person on the cut saw when they see the owner of the company emptying that bin? Basically taking out the trash. Maybe they don't even have a relationship. They just know who the person is. Huh? They see it as a bad thing? No, that's one way to look at it.
Make sure that thing's empty all the time. Top of it.
Right? Or how about the owner of the company just came and did that for me?
That's why I say it depends on the relationship.
It does. It does. And it depends on how it comes across, right? But when the owner of the company is walking through the business operation, that's called management, managed by walking around. And you're right. It's how I walk around, right? But when I stop, how's your day? What's going on? What can we do to help? Versus work faster. I'm going to get a different response, aren't I?
Yeah, I think there's another side to that. I mean, in the military, we had dog and pony shows.
Oh, yes.
And everything would slow down because you're all worried about what the place looks like for when they're walking through.
You bet.
So you wouldn't get all done.
You bet.
Propulsion, whatever.
You bet.
That could be, the other side.
Oh, yeah. I saw that just a little while ago at the Ross store here. We were in there and everybody's running around. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, we're putting everything in place and doing everything because the district manager's coming in today. Now, the problem with that is that means that's not normally how the store looks and how it operates. So the district manager comes in and gets to see everything operating efficiently and then wonders why sales are down. The other thing is do a surprise inspection, and is there negativity to that? Yeah. It's all a balancing act. So sampling, systematic sampling, stratified, random sampling, all different types of sampling. You'll need to know these for the questions of the homework. Other fact-finding techniques, research. Research. You all are going to find when you research potential solutions for personal trainer, where are you going to start your research? Google on the internet. It is amazing the stuff you can find there. A lot of industries have, industry organizations, that specialize in collecting data on your industry. You become a member of of that organization. You garner all that information. You think there's some sort of national organization of gym, owners association or something like that? Yeah. So interviews versus questionnaires. Interview, more familiar, more personal. Questionnaire, quicker, faster. How about a combination of both? If we have some time. Brainstorming, structured brainstorming, unstructured brainstorming, that's kind of where we started. You just throw ideas, we'll throw them on the board, and then we'll sort them out later. Right? We got to document. I was just talking the other day with someone. We were talking about, I think it was actually in another class. We were talking about documentation and the fact that this person was saying, yeah, there's like no documentation. I'm like, well, that's great. Like, what do you mean that's great? Well, it's better than having poor documentation or old documentation. You know, I'd rather have, you know, no documentation than incorrect documentation. It's all in how we look at it. But we do need somebody to record what we're doing. You know, simplest method of recording. How did I record our work on Wednesday? How did we record our work on Wednesday? We just put it in a pile. It's recorded, right? Can we come back and do that later? Yes. Organize your documentation so that related material is located easily. Yep. Remember how we put it in steps? We even changed our order of operations. So ways that we can document: case tools, productivity software. By the way, Word and Excel are beautiful things when it comes to documentation. Keep it short, keep it simple. However, Word and Excel do not necessarily create graphical representations. In Excel now, though, we have the smart art, okay? And a lot of those things, you know, like, you know, where am I going to build an org chart? Right there in Excel or in Word. You know, processes, you know, it's all there. Creates great graphical representations of what we're doing. You know, preview of, so the logical model. So at the conclusion of the requirements modeling, systems developers should have a clear understanding of the business process and the system requirements. We should know what the system needs to do and why it needs to do this. Well, clearly you know why the system needs to be developed for personal trainer. Because Bumblebee is just an accounting software, just a financial package. We need something that does more than that, right? Or we buy a bunch of computers and let everybody free for all. Figure out how to document and do your own job. Next step, construct a logical model of the system. We'll get into that. IT professionals have differing views about systems development methodologies. There's no one methodology. Microsoft has their own. Amazon has their own. You know, Oracle has their own. So it all depends on what we need when we need it. That's the big thing.